Good morning, everyone. Bienvenidos, amables oyentes. Bonjour, mes amis. Guten Morgen, true and true. Welcome, everyone, to another edition of Rediscovering the Federation with Movers and Shakers Unlimited. I am one of your hosts, Chris Pabon, and it is my extreme pleasure to introduce to you once again my co-host, Josh Pritchett.
Good morning. Welcome, everyone. I am Josh, and this is Chris, my co-host. And as he said before, welcome to Rediscovering the Federation on Movers and Shakers Unlimited. So we have a big show this week, don't we, Chris?
We do, Josh. Just 3 episodes left. Well, 2 after this one that we're about to talk. And there was a lot of stuff going on in terms of character development, situational development, all prepping us for the final 2 episodes and the return of a character that has been long absent from the show, but hopefully we'll get more of her time in the final 2 episodes. So with that, let's dive into the recap. And so let me get us started by saying that, the situation is that the Enterprise has discovered discovery. It's early morning. This is what happens when I don't have my coffee, people. The Discovery is orbiting a dead planet that the Discovery crew believes might hold clues to the 10C, and an away team is getting ready to go down, composed of Michael, Saru, Detmer, and the Doctor. And at the start, when they're about to go down, the Earth delegate expresses some concerns that, the time used going down to the planet might be better invested trying to penetrate the barrier to interact directly with the 10C. But Michael states that, communication without context is not going to lead to an ideal result. So going down to the planet to discover anything that might provide some type of context is a useful exercise and use of the limited time that they have, because we know that they're all on the clock. So that said, they end up going down to the planet, and they discover what the Doctor believes to be large bones. Where we're talking about a species that might have been vastly larger in size than what we were, and it's kind of one of those elements of like when you discover, ancient bones, let's say of dinosaurs, and you realize, wow, there were like entities that much larger in size than ours. And it's a desert planet, but they've located a structure that seems to be relatively still intact because it is reinforced for some reason or another, and so they decide to go there. But in the meanwhile, there are these patches that you can visibly see against like the desert soil, and Saru begins to experience something that he has not experienced in quite a while, in at least 2 seasons. And the away team notices that he's sort of freaking out, and they ask him like if he's okay, and he says, yes, it's just a momentary thing. But as they advance towards the structure and they enter it, the Doctor also begins to feel these same sensations, and it's a sensation of like, extreme fear, of anxiety. And within the structure itself, it's this enormous cavern where there's really no direct sense of where one should go, what that really was for. And that's part of the mystery of like, what was this for, as they desperately are looking for some cultural context. And so as they begin exploring it, the Doctor and then Michael herself begins to feel these feelings of extreme anxiety, and they're at a loss because 1, Detmer is still okay, but 2, they realize like, crap, like we're the captain, he's the first officer. If both of them are incapacitated, the mission now is gravely in danger, even more so than it was before. And they can't understand why the suits, which are supposed to have filtering systems in place, can't filter out whatever's affecting them. And it's like, okay, 3 of us are down, there's only 1 left. And then we find out that they are not the only ones orbiting the planet. Josh, do you want to take it from there?
So our 2 wayward characters, Book and Tarkin, are piggybacking on Discovery, trying to follow up on every bit of information Discovery is learning about the 10C. To do this, they realize they have to hack their way into Discovery's computer system, Zora. Unfortunately, they cannot just sit in the basement and do that. They actually have to physically go there and set it up. So Tarkin develops special sensory blank spots that Zora won't be able to see them. So they go aboard. They sneak aboard the Discovery, looking to hack into the system to be copying on all the information. Meanwhile, Book gets an idea to make contact with the United Earth General who has come aboard the mission to represent Earth in this. The General is very worried because they're on a real clock now because Navarre, Earth, and Titan are all in the path of the DMA. So Book makes contact with the General and trying to convince her to help them follow up on information so they know what's going on and that they can, that they've got a way to help them stop the DMA and the 10C from destroying Earth and the other planets in its wake. Meanwhile, though, Tarkin has to create a distraction in order to get into engineering to set up this link. And while he is setting up the link, Reno walks in on him and sees him, and he takes her as a prisoner aboard Book's ship. Book is more than a little bit surprised to see Reno sitting in a holding area, and Reno says, "So I bet you nothing like an unexpected hostage to ruin your day, huh?" And that's where it kind of ended on this week's story arc for Tarkin and Book. And Chris?
So we go back to the planet, and they realize that Detmer is the only one who has not been in touch with the unique black substance they found outside of the structure. And they realize that in order for the filtration system to filter out things, it has to be able to recognize what it needs to filter. And so they adjust Detmer adjusts the filtering systems on their suits to compensate for and expel this substance, and it works. And so they are no longer encased in fear. And as they begin further exploring the structure, they found another compound which generates love and caring. And they realized that this structure, the reason why it was reinforced, was a birthing place, like a nesting place, natal care, if you will, for the species. And they realized that it's perhaps these substances they're encountering are pheromones, and maybe this is how the species communicates. And the pheromones outside would have been rightly so of fear and anxiety when the planet was being bombarded with asteroids, and inside it would have been of caring and love because they were nurturing their young. And so that's their Rosetta Stone, which is the title of the episode, is that they also experience feelings just like they do. So they have a common ground to which to base communication on. So this is a great thing. So they head back to Discovery, and later on there's a meeting with Stamets and the Federation president where Stamets reveals that they sent down bots and they encountered 18 more substances, so that they know that it's very likely that they have at least 18 emotions in common. So they have the Rosetta Stone, something to start off with for basic communication. It is at that point that we have the moment where the Federation specialist in communication, whom, by the way, the Federation president speaks to in the middle of the episode, telling him that he has to be a little bit more upbeat because one thing that I failed to mention is that when they were leaving initially to go down to the planet, he really says something like, "Don't screw this up." And she's like, we need more optimism here. We need more positivity. Do not be a downer the next time you have to talk to these people. It has a bad effect. And so Stamets is communicating what they've discovered, and he's about to blow it again because he makes a mention of the Rosetta Stone, saying, well, but for the Rosetta Stone to be effective, there needed to be 2 common languages in order to decipher the third one, inferring that they only have one, and so it's still the mission's a failure. But then, like, he looks at the president looks at him, and he changes course, says, but, this is a really good start that we have, like, that first language, so situation resolved. And then we have a unique moment that it's what I guess I would call the Star Trek voyeurism moment, that you realize that Book hasn't quite been able to leave the ship yet because he needs to see Michael one last time, and so he's been watching this whole exchange from behind a panel. And so let's talk about that more later. But yeah, so he's one last longing gaze at Michael. But they have what they need, and so now it's onwards to the barrier.
Yes, and I just want to add one last thing. Anara has suddenly, starts building a friendship with Detmer because they admire Detmer and Detmer's courage, and I think this is really telling something is that Anara has been kind of on a quest these last couple of seasons where they have been trying to learn how to, get over their shyness and try to, make more friends, because really Anara, their main connections have been so far Gray and Dr. Colbert and Stamets, who have been like parents to them. So they are trying to, expand and make new friends. They did make friends in Tilly, but now they're trying to do more. So that it ends with a scene where they sit down with Detmer and start talking with each other. So I thought that was a nice add in there. Small detail, but I liked it. Okay, so onwards to the barrier.
Onwards to the barrier, yeah. So, Josh, let's talk about the stuff that we liked and didn't like. And I want to piggyback on what you just mentioned about Detmer, because I really liked, and this is a point that you've made in past episodes, but giving the supporting characters more to do. I felt that this episode gave Detmer more stuff to do, more of a pivotal role besides that of being an ace pilot. And I really like the fact that they touched upon that he wasn't always cool as a cucumber, because as Adira was talking to Reno, she's like, oh, I wish I could be as cool under fire as Detmer. And she says, well, you didn't see her after when we first got here into the future. And they don't shy away from the fact that she had PTSD. And even when they're back on the shuttle returning from the planet, and Burnham mentions, like, you were like really good down there, like really calm. And she says, well, I guess that PTSD work like really paid off. And so I like the fact that they're not just glossing over and forgetting about this, but this is a subject that they're still talking about, and how it can be turned into a positive, how much of a difference she saved that mission. And so I like the fact that she just got more time here because all of our supporting characters are valuable. What do you think?
Oh, I loved it. That was one of my favorite parts, is that I'm so glad that they, let they let Colbert and Michael and Saru, they pushed them back and let Ditmore be the hero. She was the one who figured out about the substance getting into their suits. I've been saying how over the last 2 seasons it's been great that they have been making more room for the other characters. They haven't just been there. They are now getting to do stuff. We're getting to know them. We're getting to remember their names. They're becoming more real people to us. And again, I keep hyping this, the Nimoy principle about characters. And I think that's been great. I hope we continue on this trend and seeing more of that with Detmer and Reese and Onako and the rest. I think this is very important, and to have not just representation but also participation is very important in this situation. So
I completely agree, and I want to touch on something that you just mentioned now. about them being on the planet, and the idea of the pheromones being a method of nonverbal communication. I think that's just so Trek. I mean, one thing we've seen about Star Trek is that they push the barrier of ideas and novel concepts. So I think they're trying to prime us a little bit about this in the previous episode when they were talking about the universal translator being at work. I mean, communication as we envision it may be completely different with the 10C than what it actually is. So I think that the idea of communication based on pheromones is quite intriguing. I think that it's something that you see in the insect world, let's say with bees. I mean, I'm still a little hesitant about how this would, in practice, work with someone who does not communicate via pheromones, communicating with someone accurately who uses pheromones. So I like this as an idea of a Rosetta Stone. I mean, I'm just not quite sure how they're going to pull it off in terms of effective communicating, but I like the concept itself of, Star Trek once again pushing the barriers of new ideas that we hadn't thought of and thinking outside the box of nonverbal communication. I mean, what did you think?
Again, I'm going to go out here and say I really loved it. Yeah, I think it's very original. And I think they're incorporating a lot more literary science fiction ideas that you don't usually see come up in TV and movies with science fiction. The idea that, oh, okay, we have an alien race that communicates through smell and pheromones and not through verbal communication. You mentioned insects. Well, I'll go one step further and say that gorillas do something similar. That people talk about the smell of a gorilla. Well, sometimes gorillas have the ability to generate a certain smell to indicate aggression or attraction or something like that. I thought this was very clever. I don't know how well it'll translate in further into a visual medium going forward, but I really liked it. I mean, you're sort of you're getting more into more of a hard science fiction territory here with that, because we don't, we just in traditional, visual sci-fi like movies and TV shows and radio, we just assume that the aliens are going to be like us, just look different. So we have a reference to work with. But now we have an opportunity to create a set of characters that is so different, so much more alien than what we've previously had, that it does open up more imagination, more storytelling. And I think that's brilliant. So, props to the writing team on that one.
I'm just thinking of the Stargate principle, where every planet they visited seemed to be humans from the medieval times. So yeah, it's good that we have something completely different, which is fantastic about the intro of like these being gigantic creatures with large bones. If you remember Star Trek Enterprise, in this whole storyline in season 3 about the Xindi, they make mention of the different species and of the avians, and how like the skies used to be filled with the avians, but at that time they didn't have the computer graphics imagery to create the avians, so we had to be left with the images of like, oh, what they would have looked like. But now I think we have the capacity to create creatures that visually are going to look very real. So looking very forward to the appearance of the 10C. So one of the things I didn't like about the episode was Tark and Book just showing up. So it was a big deal for the need that coffee, for the Discovery to penetrate the barrier and get to the other side. I mean, they took a beating, and then all of a sudden, Book and Tarka, whose ship is much smaller and probably has less capacity for shields, is just there. And so I'm like, okay, just give me one line saying that was a rocky, that's a rocky entry through the barrier, but just something, because it's just like, okay, they're there, but it was such a big deal about Discovery making it through, and they just seem to have not missed a beat going through. I'm like, no, give me something. I mean, And how do they catch up with them in time? Because they've met up with them at the planet, but it seemed to me that Discovery had a head start. I mean, was it Tarka just being able to figure out the mycelial network better so that he ended up closer to the barrier than they did? Was it Tarka using his evil genius to figure out like a way to inverse polarity of his shields or whatever to like, more effectively transverse the barrier? I was just like, okay, yeah, I knew story-wise that you guys were going to get here, but give me a line or something to explain how you just showed up. I mean, Josh?
Well, I think that some of that goes back to the episode before that when they had the whole thing with the programmable antimatter that Tarkin wanted to use to create shields. And Discovery had used something similar, but maybe Tarkin had a better way of doing it. You're right, though. They should have had a line or even had something where Book is running around trying to fix systems that got damaged while they were going through the barrier. That didn't really help them very much. That they should have done a little something more just to say, hey, that they took their bumps too. As far as something I did not like. I mean, I agree with what you're saying there, Chris. I just, I think that I think that they probably did mention something about it, but in the episode prior. But you're right. They should have said more about that. I agree. As far as something I did not get as much into, I keep, I think that the communications expert guy, he's really kind of annoying. I mean, I do like though how the president sort of shut him down when he's trying to do that crossword puzzle, and she figures out the word that he's looking for is obligation. That's snap. Okay, but yeah, he's definitely a very socially awkward kind of guy. Who makes up, I don't know. I'm beginning to really think that they should put him and Tarkin on that planet with no electricity. So that would be a good idea.
But yes, that's the other thing. It's like, Book, trusting Tarka is, when are you going to learn? This is a bad idea. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, I saw Reno taken hostage, and I was just like, I almost expect that from Tarka. And so for Book to come in there and see her there, it's like, Book, why are you surprised? It's a bad idea to keep on trusting Tarka. He's always going to do something different. Like, you should have left him on that planet with no electricity.
Yes, he really should have. I mean, it's like the more you keep trusting this guy, I mean, I'm sure in Target's mind, he's doing the right thing, but he just doesn't care. All he wants to do is find this dimension where his friend might or might not be and go there. But he doesn't give anything, any concern about the people who we left behind in this universe, who I guess things have hurt him, have caused him a lot of problems. He is a villain. I mean, he
totally is. He may not have the musculature of Khan, but he's just equally a villain as Khan.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to say something more like Gul Dukat.
All right. Okay.
It's the same principle, though. It is exactly the same. You're right. He is very much a villain in the tradition of Star Trek. Is that the villains in Star Trek are brilliant in the sense that they are usually not completely evil. That they do feel like they have some sort of good in their motivations, but we the viewers realize, yeah, this person is completely and totally evil. I mean, Dukat had the whole thing with like he was trying to, save his world. That he wanted the Bajorans to like him, even though he was occupying their world. He wanted to be a good father, but he kept messing that up. And then in the end, he finally just embraced the Pa race. Spoiler alert there. Khan, felt like, oh, I don't treat people that badly. I just want everyone to serve me because I'm perfect. Kai Wynn, she was trying to, make Bajoran, Bajor, more, pleasing to the prophets, and trying to serve the prophets, and that she was doing it wrong. You could go on and on and on. We could do entire episodes someday. Maybe we should. Is we just pick a villain and we talk about it for an hour. But honestly, yeah, he's just, you just want to grab Book by the lapels and say, why are you trusting this guy? He's been messing you over since the beginning.
I mean, the minute he leaves him alone, you knew something bad was going to happen. He cannot leave Tarka alone ever. I mean, the only reason why he probably hasn't incapacitated the ship is because he's attached to it and he needs the ship to penetrate the barrier. But that's it. I mean, Michael, once he finds out that Janet Reno's been taken hostage, is going to blow a gasket. So, hello, Book. I mean, you are already on her bad side now. You're just going to slide even deeper because, she's not going to forget this. And two, when you think about everything that Tarka probably wants to do that he hasn't told Book, I mean, Book is getting set up here for take the blame for everything, and he just doesn't seem to realize this. And for a guy who's partly, can sense what's going on to other people, it says, I know that Tarka's created a blind spot, which I want to talk about in a bit, so Zora can't see him, but he seems to have created two devices because he is a huge blind spot for Book.
Yeah. Well, he's very good at manipulating Book. Okay. Tarkin is able, I think he's using a lot of his, Book's imbalance about the DMA and his own emotional stresses to manipulate him into this situation where he is, he's vulnerable, and that, he's anything as long as we can stop the DMA and stop it from hurting people. I mean, in a way, just to sort of tap into another popular sci-fi genre universe. I mean, it's like, Palpatine and Anakin. I mean, Palpatine, promises Anakin all these great things that if he just comes over to the dark side, he'll do for him. But in the end, he's lied to him. He that both of them are being lied to. And, like I said, it's, Book has to wake up here and realize, yeah, Tarkin is screwing him over. I mean, Tarkin probably is not lying about his friend Oros. He's not, I don't think he's lying about that. But I do think that his motives are not exactly the purest. And I think that he is a very bad person and a very selfish person. So, Book seriously needs to get his act together and put a stop to this crap soon, or more people are going to get hurt.
So, evil geniuses earn the moniker genius because they do things that you don't anticipate, like being able to create a blind spot that a super sentient computer whose primary mission is to protect Discovery's crew can't sense. Okay. But at a certain point, Zola's got to figure out something is going wrong. I mean, despite the patches, and here's the example of what I mean, that when Book goes to talk to the Earth General, isn't Zola going to think, wait a minute, the president here is, the general is talking to a nothing, to a blind spot. What is he talking to? Or when Reno gets taken off the ship, isn't he going to realize someone from the crew that I value above everything else has been taken off the ship? WTH. So why isn't Zola, sensing that these things eventually are happening? And unless this is like a backdoor to justify bringing Commander Narn in next season, which, by the way, I totally support, saying that, listen, you need a chief of security. A chief of security is designed just for this, to prevent people from getting onto the ship, and especially taking people or items off the ship. So if this is a backdoor way to justify bringing Commander Narn on next season, totally in favor. But it's like, when is Zola going to notice something is wrong?
Well, first off, let me start off by saying that bringing Narn back would be awesome. I also love the character. I hope she will be coming back. They definitely sounded like in the last episode that was a possibility. Going back to what you were saying about why didn't Zora notice this, I have to wonder, what exactly are Zora's respecting privacy issues like? I mean, does she just kind of give everybody their own space until they call her up? I mean, that she, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of people that, don't want to feel uncomfortable with the idea that, okay, we have the sentient AI that's running the ship. Is she going to rat on me if I'm having a tryst with someone who is not my significant other? I mean, do you want Zora to kind of have the power to be able to do something like that? I don't think most people would, but I can sort of see, like, okay, it would have been nice if there could have been a line when Burnham got back and suddenly Zora says, Captain Burnham, Engineer Reno is no longer on Discovery. Something has happened. I'm not sure what. And maybe they will build on that next episode. I hope they do. That would be kind of cool. But I see your point. Why didn't Zora say, hey, someone's grabbed Reno? Or, hey, why is the general not talking? Or why is she talking to an empty room? What's going on? I mean, again, it could very well be that Zora does have, a privacy thing that's like, okay, they said, okay, it's not a good idea to monitor everybody all the time. So just, only monitor when we're talking, when we call for you to do so, so that could be.
I mean, I can buy that. I mean, I also watch DC's Legends of Tomorrow, and there's an ongoing joke that they also have Gideon, who's their super sentient AI in the ship. But by design, there's one blind spot, which is the bathroom.
And it's a good one to have.
A good one to have. That's right. But the one blind spot is the bathroom. So, okay, I'm sort of buying that. The other thing that I have to say about this, which is the flip, is that I've been missing Janet Reno all season. We got a little bit of her. I think it was in episode 5, and then that was it. And so, if because of her schedule, she couldn't film a lot. If you're going to give me a lot of Reno, I'll take it at the end. Okay. I want something meaty, and I really look forward to what is probably going to be some snarky dialogue between her and Tarka as he's held hostage. So if you could only give me a little bit of Reno, give it to me at the end. I'm fully in favor of this. I don't like the idea of her being kidnapped, but I do like the idea of, like, okay, finally we're going to get like a lion's share of screen time of Janet Reno.
Yeah, I agree that it's going to be good to have Commander Reno back, even if it is for the last 3 episodes of the season. I think she can be a lot more significant than if you were just having her, being in there, a couple shots here, a couple shots. I mean, it's like, when you could have Whoopi Goldberg be on Next Generation. All right, you didn't just want her to be in the background at 10 forward or something. You wanted her to be in scenes where she could have an impact. Because I mean, obviously Whoopi Goldberg is, Whoopi Goldberg, and you want to get the most out of that, and you want to get the same thing with Tig Notaro, who is a huge comedian and internet personality. And for someone who didn't know that much about Star Trek to begin with, she has really embraced it as her universe, and that she is really, she really does slice through the technobabble very well, and just, I mean, makes me really believe this character is for real. I absolutely love Reno, and I'm glad we're going to see some more of her in these last 3 episodes. I wish we could get more of her every season, but obviously she has all these other commitments. So, I mean, because she was she was kind of a big growing deal prior to coming on to Discovery. And being part of the Star Trek universe. I also hope she'll be making it to some Star Trek conventions down the road. If she's watching this, please think about Shore Leave or Farpoint next year, for your convention, or even AwesomeCon would be fine. But yeah,
the show is big fans of Janet Reno. Come to a con, Tig. Come to a con near DC.
Yes, anywhere within about 50 miles or so of the 50 to 70 miles of the DC area would be awesome for us. So, yeah.
Absolutely. So before we get into like a forecast of theories of things to come, the other thing I want to talk to you about, Josh, is that, and you and I may disagree about this, is like this is a critical mission, and yet the captain and the second in command are both going on the mission. I guess you call it the submission related to the mission. I'm like, no, this again, like Michael Burnham thinking it's got to be me. Like, no, part of being captain is to know when to delegate. This is the same thing that the president of the Federation told her before. You need to delegate and delegate, because when they're on the planet and both her and Saru are being subjected to these intense emotions of fear, the whole entire mission is screwed if both of these people can't be functional. And she realizes this. You can't put in danger the two people upon who you depend to lead the overall mission. So I'm like, no, I'm okay with you letting Saru go down to the planet, but like one of you have to stay here. On a regular mission, I totally trust you can like delegate to the third in command, delegate to your version of Scotty. But in this critical mission, like, no, both of you can't go down there. I mean, you just can't. So I'm like, Burnham should have stayed on the ship.
Okay, so this is where we're going to disagree.
Right.
And as I said last week to Justin, it's still television, it's still streaming, whatever you want to call it. It made in Star Trek: The Next Generation. Okay, this is when they started the whole principle of, okay, the first officer is going to lead the away missions, and the captain is going to stay back and man the ship, or command the ship, because the ship is his or her or their main responsibility in these situations. But that did not always translate that well on Next Generation, and I think a lot of people liked it better in later episodes of TNG after the first season, when Picard was going on more of the away missions and taking more of the lead, because, okay, he's the show lead. You kind of expect that. The other thing is, of course, as Michael pointed out to to Relic, was she is the leading xenobiologist on the ship. Before she was a captain, before she was a first officer, she was a xenobiologist. Saru is a first contact expert. Detmer is, of course, the best pilot, and Dr. Colbert is, his thing is very obvious. To me, that felt like a very traditional start. That was what helped make it a more traditional Star Trek episode, when you got Kirk, Spock, and Bones all going down on the away mission, and then, we run into something really crazy, that's endangering us. It's these pheromones. How do we deal with this? I think they did a great job with. I personally liked it. I also like the fact that, we actually wore environmental suits instead of beaming down into an alien planet where we don't know what the heck is going on.
With different colors, the environmental suits.
Yes, and thankfully, I'm very glad. Another thing I was glad about was that Detmer was not the sacrificial red shirt in this, and so
her suit was orange, though. If it was red, I think we would have been in trouble.
She would have been, but of course, we this is a post TNG, as I said, the new golden age of the Federation, and they're wearing the Next Generation era color scheme. So, Michael, Saru, guess what? You're the red shirts. Anything goes.
All right, so I'm going to push back a little bit on what you said about the xenobiologist, because I am totally buying what you said, that she is a xenobiologist, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
As you're preparing for this mission, and they even make the reference, we'll be ready to leave in 2 hours. Was there not a leading xenobiologist of that era able to come onto the ship? Was he on the shuttle with the delegates? It was too late. So that's when President Trina said, our delegate was too late, so I had to come on here. Was the xenobiologist in that shuttle too? I mean, why wouldn't you have a leading xenobiologist come on to the ship so you don't encounter situations like, well, Michael is the only leading xenobiologist that we have on here. I mean, where were the xenobiologists? How come they didn't make make the trip.
I'm going to partially agree and disagree with you on this.
Okay.
When Michael became the captain of the Discovery, her job was to be the captain, not be the xenobiologist. Okay.
Right.
If Spock, when Spock became captain of the Enterprise in Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, it was not his job to be the science officer. That was supposed to be somebody else's job. I mean, obviously, of course, because Kirk Rios, we won't get into that.
Okay.
But if he would have delegated science officer duties to somebody else so he could remain captain. The same should have been said for Michael. There should have been a new designated xenobiologist already on the crew at that point. But again, you have to deal with the idea that, okay, we'd have to introduce a new character. We'd have to develop a connection to this character. So when that character was put in danger, we'd actually care about it. And, only 2 to 3 episodes to go. I don't think there's enough time for that. I mean, it's the same principle as like with, okay, why did Relic end up on the mission? Okay. She went through this whole thing throughout most of the season talk telling Michael, hey, you need to delegate. Oh, okay. This is a big first contact thing with a species we never encountered before. I'm going to turn all my presidential duties over to my VP, and I'm going to go off with Discovery and
Michael is a bad influence on the president.
Yes, she is. Michael is a very bad influence, but I still love her anyway. Sneak with Martin Green. If you're out there, you're watching us, come to a convention near DC, please.
I'm okay with the Federation president also coming to convention.
Yes, both of you, please come. Anyone from Discovery, please come.
So, I think that this is a good time to transition into our theories of what is to come.
Okay.
And I want to toss something out there for you to think about. Adara and Detmer. Janet Reno says, "Oh, so when Gray's not here, the cat comes out to play," and Gray's future is going to be one of the Guardians, which probably means he's not going to leave Trill very often, and so might we see the seeds being planted now for a Adara Detmer relationship in the following season?
Yeah, I mean that's I don't really want to see Gray and Adara break up, but at the same time,
story-wise,
it's not fair for Adara to sit around and wait for Gray to, set aside a weekend from his Guardian duties to come to Discovery and hang out and do their thing. But I think, at some point, they're going to have to just, even though they've invested so much in one another for so long, I think that there might have to be, just a point where they just say, hey, look, we're both very important parts of our lives, but we're now on different paths. We'll still be friends. We'll still care about each other. But, we both have to move on, because our lives are going in these two totally different directions. It's not fair for us both to wait for one another. So, I think you're right about that. Theories going forward. This is just wishful thinking that I'm really hoping something very unpleasant happens to Tarkin, and just makes him more of a villain. Just let him be the villain. I mean, that he's not going to get to go to his idea of paradise or whatever. I'm pretty sure that's off the table. There's just no way anybody's rooting for that guy.
Do any of us actually believe that he's going to give diplomacy a chance?
No, he doesn't give a damn. He doesn't care about this universe. He doesn't care about Discovery. He doesn't even really. Book is a means to an end. He just wants that power source so he can jump universes. That's all he cares about. And the sooner Book finally gets that in his head and realizes, and realize that Michael and Relic. I keep wanting to put an L in there. Relic and Michael and Saru are right, and the Federation is right. that he needs to do this, that he needs to step back and let them do their thing and save the galaxy. The better. I don't know when he's going to do that. I don't know. This is going to end with, maybe this ends with Book picking Tarka up and throwing him into a warp reactor or something.
Star Wars style, picking him up and throwing him down a well.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. So, maybe, but I don't know. I think that, like I said, here's the big thing I really hope out of this is that Reno gets out of this okay. I'm sure she's going to do a lot to sabotage Book's ship between now and when they find the 10C. She's going to make life very unpleasant for the both of them. And I'm looking forward to that because Tarka definitely needs to be taken out a few dozen pegs.
We talked about last week that we might have a death, that it sort of makes sense to have a death at the end of the season. Given Janet Reno's very busy schedule, are you concerned that it might be her?
Yeah, I am concerned about it being Janet. I hope it's not. I hope they will still find. I hope she'll be able to continue to find an episode here and there to pop up in. That would really bite if it was her. On the other hand, if you're going to have like a major character getting killed off, it's like, who do you want to kill off exactly? I mean, I'm not, I don't want to lose anybody from my little Discovery family here, but
First, I think it's going to be the president of the Federation. It's either going to be her getting killed, or it's going to be in a nod to Deep Space Nine. She's going to stay behind, just like the Kai did, to enter a dialogue and building a relationship with the 10C species.
That would be interesting, and then we could go meet the new Federation president, and maybe the new Federation president will turn out to be a Klingon, and now, Michael's got to, start taking orders from a Klingon. I mean, that's going to be awkward. So maybe not. Maybe not. I mean, I don't know.
So speaking of Michael, on a scale of 1 to 10, how pissed is he going to be at Book when he discovers that Reno has been taken hostage and that Book was engaging in some voyeurism walking around the ship?
Scale of 1 to 10, we're going to take this up to an 11, like Spinal Tap, and that's about where it's going to be.
I completely agree. I think that, her feelings are conflicted right now about Book, rightfully so, but once he finds out that he was skulking around the ship and takes someone, even though we know it's Tarka, but first in her mind is going to be Book. Yeah, I think the shit's really going to hit the fan, and that's going to be another fracture in the relationship.
Yeah, I realistically, I don't see how their relationship would recover. I mean, obviously, yeah, you have the Cisco Cassidy Yates thing where, okay, she was, she wasn't actually participating directly in terrorist activities other than supplying the Maquis. And, Cisco was able to forgive her and move on. But by that point, the Maquis were largely destroyed by the Cardassians and the Dominion. So, I think he was able to forgive her, but I don't see how Michael forgives Book for any of this. Which, that said, I hate to see David Ajar leave the show and go off to a Federation penal colony. But I think that, I hate to say it, but, it might just be that Book becomes just this character who pops in every now and again, and they find a way to be friends, but as far as the relationship they had, it might be over at this point. So, but I guess we'll find out.
So
maybe Book gets left behind. Because he has this ability to communicate with people that don't need necessarily use vocal abilities, and maybe he, this is his penance that he stays with them, and Michael just has to move on with that.
Here's a couple of Hail Mary theories I want to bounce off you. So one, how do we know that within the contained space of the sphere. It's sort of not like a Doctor Who thing that, it's an infinite space within there. And so if they penetrate the barrier of the sphere and they get in there, that they might not have trouble finding the way back out. And two, could we see next season be sort of like, or at least part of it, an homage to Star Trek Voyager, that they are either trapped in the sphere or trapped on the other side of the galactic barrier, realizing, holy shit, we don't know how to get back. And so that saves David Ajala from going at least immediately to a penal colony, because they can't get back to put him in a penal colony.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I'm sure that they already have a plan. They have an idea of what season 5 is going to look like at this point. Is that what's going to happen? Are they going to be flying around the galactic barrier trying to find a doorway back in? I mean, once they get back inside, then yes, the mycelial network will be able to help them get back to Starfleet. The question is, I mean, if you're going to be flying around the outside of the galaxy, how many years will you have to do that? I mean, how long is that going to take you? I mean, we're talking, our galaxy is, billions of light years around, and, it's a really good question. I mean, or, of course, then again, because there's a big wormhole that's connecting the power source of the DMA to the actual DMA itself. Maybe they could fly through the wormhole. There and again is a possibility, but, that's one thing to consider. Obviously, the 10Cs seem to be able to manipulate wormholes pretty successfully. I am still believing that maybe the 10C had something to do with the planet killer from the original Star Trek series, and that maybe that planet killer was a prototype for the DMA, and that took them another 800 years or something to develop the next one. That they had, it took them that long. I mean, we know nothing. We know one thing now about the 10C. They communicate through pheromones. Well, two things. They're also apparently very, very large creatures. So
here's something for you, another Hail Mary.
Mm-hmm.
What if, since this is a very advanced species, which obviously knows about getting the planet bombarded and its race and wiped out? I mean, true, they do mention the episode, like, what if they just don't care? Which is a possibility.
Yeah.
But on the flip side of that, what if they do care and the technology is so advanced that when they destroy a planet that's inhabited, they somehow have the technology to beam all of them into their sphere, and once we go into the sphere, we find out that the people from Quajon are actually there living on a planet created by the 10C.
That would be very cool. That would be the one thing that would, I think, shake Book up. I mean, I don't think he would still be happy with them about destroying, but I think he'd be very happy to know that his friends and family are still alive. It's just they've been, trapped in this other dimension. They've been trapped on this other planet during all of this. So I think it would be, yeah. I mean, at least that would, because I mean, here's the other thing that we have not really addressed, or at least we've just mentioned, is that the mycelial network, someone's either going to need to have implants put in their arms, or they're going to have to be from Book's planet, where they're going to have this natural empathy to communicate with, non-vocal creatures like the mycelial network. So to make the mycelial network work, they might have to Starfleet might have to actively recruit people from Quajon to be able to make it work if they're going to have a dilithium faster than light space travel in the future. So that could also be a possibility.
So it sort of sounds like interaction with the 10C is going to come down to Shakespeare. To care or not to care? That is the question.
Well, I care very greatly. So, we will see here in the next week or two what happens next. I think there's a lot that is going on. One other thing, and I think we're almost
I think we're almost out of time.
I just want to throw this out there and something we have not really mentioned about Tarkin is, have you noticed like the tattoo on his head? That indicates to me that he comes from that same planet that we first saw in the mirror in the episode Mirror Mirror from the original series. I don't know why we haven't really mentioned that. I mean, and those people had a very, very aggressive attitude about pacifism, that they didn't want to share their dilithium with the Federation, even if the Federation was benevolent, because the Federation might use that dilithium to, fight and kill Klingons or Romulans or other species that were belligerent. But that was why they wouldn't share their dilithium. I'm wondering, obviously Tarkin does not share that creed with his world. So, it'd be interesting to find out if there's something more there going on.
It's true. It's very true. I hadn't thought of that. And speaking of additional thoughts before we leave, a shout out to all our Trek fans that there is another show that they can start watching now, because Star Trek Discovery is not the only game in town. Star Trek Picard just started this week. So there's going to be a 3-week overlap in which you can double your Trek and not only enjoy Discovery, but also enjoy Picard.
That's right. Yes, this is the first time since 1999 that we have had two different Star Trek shows running at the same time. It's the 90s all over again. I mean, guess what, everybody? Gasoline now costs 75 cents a gallon.
The good times. Well, it is time to say until next time.
Yes.
And Josh, I'll let you go first.
Well, thank you, Chris. Everyone can reach me at Josh Pritchett Jr. on Facebook. My Twitter handle is right here. My collection of short stories, Bigfoot and Other Tales of the Supernatural, is still available on Amazon and Kindle. And I will be signing copies of that this July at Shorely. So please come see me. Until next week, I would like to just simply say,
And for anyone who wants to follow me, you can follow me on Instagram at ReDiscovering, where you will see some great cosplay from not only KatsuCon, but also shout out to Fairfax MiniCon, which was held yesterday at the Dallas Expo Center, and I think it was a great success. And so, I nod my head at the organizers who put this together, and I think it was a resounding success. So come see the greatest and latest cosplay, and also you'll see some great examples from GalaxyCon, which will be held in Richmond in 2 weeks. Well, I will also be there, and Josh and I will both be there. So until next week, for all of you, peace and long life.